The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between three bright stars. Ships from across the galaxy had come here for one reason. The Galactic Elite Hunting Championship was about to begin. Jake Morrison stood at the window of his ship and watched the other vessels dock. His human eyes could barely take in the size of some of them. The Kithara ships looked like giant metal snakes. The Fenrithi vessels had sharp edges like wolf teeth. The insect-like Zephyrian craft buzzed and clicked as they moved. "Captain, we should really focus on our diplomatic mission," said Amy Walsh, his second in command. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and worried eyes. "We're here to make trade deals, not watch alien sports." Jake nodded, but kept staring out the window. He had heard stories about this championship for years. Every species in the galaxy respected the winners. The current champions were the Kithara, led by a huge reptile named Vex Talon. He had won 15 times in a row. "Danny, what do you know about this hunting thing?" Jake asked his weapons expert. Danny. Coleman was a big man with thick arms and a simple way of talking. "From what I heard, they hunt the most dangerous animals in the galaxy. Points for how hard the prey is to catch and how fast you do it. Nobody has ever beaten the top 3 races." Dr. Lisa Martinez looked up from her research pad. She was small and smart, always reading about something. "The rules say any species can enter if they pay the fee and pass the basic tests. But, Captain, the entry fee is huge. It would cost us everything Earth gave us for this mission." Jake turned away from the window. Something about this felt important. Humans had been trading with aliens for 50 years, but they were never taken seriously. They were seen as weak and peaceful. Maybe it was time to change that. "We're entering the championship," Jake said. The 3 crew members stared at him. Amy's mouth fell open. Danny scratched his head. Lisa dropped her research pad. "Captain, that's crazy," Amy said. "We're not hunters. We're diplomats. We don't have claws or fangs or special powers like the other species." "We don't need them," Jake replied. He walked to the communication panel. "Computer, connect me to the championship registration office." An hour later, they stood in the registration hall of Nexus Prime. The ceiling was so high that clouds formed. Near the top, aliens of every shape and size filled the space. Most were twice as tall as the humans and looked much more dangerous. The registration desk was run by a purple alien with 6 arms. When Jake announced that humans wanted to enter the championship, the alien's face changed colors several times. "Humans?" the alien asked. "Are you sure? This is the Elite Hunting Championship, not a nature walk." Laughter echoed through the hall. A group of Fenrithi, who looked like giant wolves walking on 2 legs, howled with amusement. Some Zephyrians clicked their mandibles together in what Jake guessed was their version of laughing. Then a deep voice cut through the noise. "What is this?" The crowd went quiet. A massive Kithara moved toward them. His scales were dark green and black, and his yellow eyes were bigger than Jake's fist. This had to be Vex Talon. "Humans want to enter the championship," the registration alien said nervously. Vex Talon looked down at the 4 humans. His head tilted to one side, like a curious snake. "Humans. The peaceful traders. The ones who solve problems with words instead of action." "That's right," Jake said, meeting the alien's stare. "We want to compete." More laughter came from the crowd. Vex Talon raised a clawed hand, and the noise stopped. "This is amusing," the Kithara said. "You have no natural weapons, no enhanced senses, no special abilities. What makes you think you can hunt alongside the galaxy's apex predators?" Jake smiled. "Maybe that's exactly why we can win." Vex Talon's eyes narrowed. For a moment, Jake thought the alien might attack him right there. Instead, The Cathara began to laugh. It was a deep, rumbling sound that made the floor vibrate. Very. Well, little human, I will make you a deal. If your species can survive even the first trial, I will personally pay your entry fee. But when you fail, and you will fail, you will leave this station and never return. Jake looked at his crew. Amy was pale but nodded. Danny cracked his knuckles. Lisa was already taking notes about the aliens around them. Deal, Jake said, as. They completed their registration. Word spread quickly through the station. Humans had entered the Galactic Elite Hunting Championship. Most aliens saw it as a joke. Some saw it as proof that humans were stupid, but a few older, wiser beings looked at the humans with curious eyes. They remembered that in nature, the most dangerous predators were often the ones that looked harmless. The championship would begin in 3 days. Jake and his crew had that long to prepare for something no human had ever attempted. They had no idea they were about to change how the entire galaxy saw their species forever. The first trial took place on a jungle world called Shadowmere. Jake Morrison stood with his crew at the edge of a thick forest that seemed to eat the light. Strange sounds came from deep in the green darkness. Your target is the Void Stalker, announced the trial judge, a floating crystal being that spoke in musical tones. These creatures can phase in and out of normal space. They are nearly invisible and extremely dangerous. You have 48 hours to capture one alive. Teams that fail will be eliminated. Around them, the other hunting teams prepared their advanced equipment. The Cathara activated camouflage suits that made them blend with their surroundings. The Fenrithi tested scent-tracking devices. The Zephyrians spread their wings and flew up to get a better view of the hunting area. Amy Walsh checked her simple scanner. Captain, I'm not picking up much. These Void Stalkers really are hard to detect. Good, Jake said. That means everyone else will have trouble too. Danny Coleman looked confused. How is that good? We need to catch one of these things. Lisa Martinez was already walking toward the tree line. Because we're not going to hunt like they do. We're going to think like humans. The other teams rushed into the jungle, eager to start tracking their prey. The humans did something different. They sat down and started making maps. This is embarrassing, muttered a Cathara hunter watching from nearby. The humans are having a picnic while we're trying to win a championship. But Jake had a plan. 4. The next 6 hours, his team split up and carefully explored small sections of the jungle. They didn't look for Void Stalkers. Instead, they studied everything else. Amy mapped the water sources and noted where animals came to drink. Danny tracked which plants the local animals preferred to eat. Lisa collected soil samples and studied insect patterns. Jake drew detailed maps of game trails and feeding areas. Captain, Amy said over their radio, the other teams are already reporting stalker sightings. Shouldn't we be hunting too? We are hunting, Jake replied. We're just hunting smarter. By sunset, 3 teams had already lost members to stalker attacks. The creatures were faster and more dangerous than expected. The Fenrithi team leader was in the medical bay with severe wounds. A Zephyrian scout had simply vanished. The humans spent the night in shifts, with one person always on guard while the others worked on their data. They created a detailed picture of the jungle ecosystem. Look at this, Lisa said, pointing to her notes. The Void Stalkers are predators, right? So they have to eat. And their prey animals follow predictable patterns. Amy nodded. The water sources are key. Every animal has to drink. And there are only 3 major water holes in this sector of jungle. Danny was cleaning his equipment. So instead of chasing invisible monsters through dangerous jungle, we make them come to us? Exactly, Jake said. We don't hunt the stalkers. We hunt their food and use that to hunt them. The second day began with more teams reporting problems. The stalkers seemed to know every hunting trick the galaxy's best had to offer. But the humans put their plan into action. First, they used simple noisemakers to copy the sounds of wounded prey animals. Lisa had analyzed the local creatures and knew exactly which frequencies would attract predators. They placed these devices near the 3 water holes. Next, Danny set up basic containment fields powered by their ship's portable generators. The fields weren't strong enough to hold a stalker directly, but they could channel the creature's movement. Amy coordinated the timing. She had studied the feeding patterns and knew when the stalkers would be most active. At exactly the right moment, she activated the wounded animal calls. The response was immediate. Invisible shapes began moving through the jungle toward the waterholes. The humans couldn't see the stalkers directly, but they could see the effect they had on the environment. Leaves moved without wind. Small animals ran in panic. Now, Jake whispered into his radio. Lisa released chemical compounds that attracted the stalker's normal prey to specific locations. The local animals, drawn by the scents, moved exactly where the humans wanted them. The void stalkers followed their prey, just as Jake had predicted. As they moved through the carefully placed containment fields, the invisible predators became briefly visible in the energy barriers. Danny was ready. Instead of trying to fight creatures he couldn't see, he used simple tranquilizer nets that covered wide areas. The stalkers, focused on their prey, ran right into the traps. In less than 4 hours, the human team had captured 6 void stalkers. No other team had caught more than 1, and most had caught none. The trial judges couldn't believe it. A floating crystal being that had announced the rules spoke in confused musical tones. "How did you capture so many without advanced equipment or special abilities?" Jake smiled. "We used the most advanced equipment in the galaxy. Our brains." The other teams gathered around the human capture area. Vextalon himself came to inspect the stalkers, his yellow eyes wide with surprise. "This must be luck," he said finally. "Beginners often succeed through accident." But some of the older hunters weren't so sure. An ancient Fenrithi elder named Korth approached Jake after the results were announced. "Your method was unusual," Korth sighed. "Most species hunt by being better predators than their prey. You hunted by understanding the prey better than it understands itself." Amy looked proud as they walked back to their ship. "The other teams are talking about us. Some of them seem worried." "They should be," Lisa said. "We just proved that intelligence beats strength." Danny was still confused. "I don't get why everyone's so surprised. Isn't this how humans have always hunted? Back on Earth, our ancestors didn't have claws or fangs either." Jake stopped walking. Danny had said something important without realizing it. Humans had been persistence hunters for millions of years. They had developed different skills than other predators. Maybe those skills would work just as well in space. "What's the next trial?" Jake asked. Amy checked her data pad. "Crystal caves on Zarian Beta. We hunt something called crystal drakes." As they boarded their ship, Jake noticed more alien ships following them than before. Word was spreading through the galaxy. The humans had won the first trial. Most still thought it was luck, but Vextalon was studying recordings of the human hunt. His experienced eyes saw something the others missed. The humans hadn't succeeded by accident. They had used a completely different approach to predation. For the first time in his long career, Vextalon began to worry that he might have underestimated his opponents. The next trial would tell him if his fears were justified. The crystal caves of Zarian Beta were like nothing Jake Morrison had ever seen. The walls were made of living crystal that grew and shifted constantly. Light bounced in every direction, creating rainbows that hurt to look at directly. Sounds echoed and twisted until it was impossible to tell where they came from. "Your prey is the crystal drake," announced the trial judge. "These creatures can move through solid rock and generate sonic attacks that can shatter bone. The caves amplify all sounds, making traditional hunting methods nearly impossible. You have 72 hours. The other hunting teams looked nervous. Several had lost members in the first trial, and the remaining hunters were more careful now. The Kithara tried to use their camouflage, but the reflecting crystals made hiding pointless. The Fenrithi covered their sensitive ears. They're enhanced. Hearing becoming a weakness in the echoing caves, Amy Walsh watched a team of Zephyrians try to fly through the cave system. Their compound eyes, usually perfect for tracking movement, couldn't process the chaotic light patterns. Within minutes, they crashed into a crystal wall and had to retreat. "This place is designed to confuse every sense," Lisa Martinez said, studying her scanner readings. "The crystal drakes evolved here. They have every advantage." Danny Coleman tested his weapons on a small crystal formation. The sound of the blast echoed for nearly a minute, growing louder instead of fading. "Any loud noise we make will tell everything in these caves exactly where we are." Jake nodded. "Then we don't make loud noises." For the first day, they watched other teams attempt traditional hunting methods. Every approach failed. The Kithara couldn't hide from creatures that sensed vibrations through rock. The Fenrithi couldn't track by scent in an environment with no organic smells. The Zephyrians couldn't use their speed in the narrow, twisting passages. 3 teams withdrew after suffering serious injuries. The crystal drakes were not only hard to find, they were actively hunting the hunters. "Captain," Amy said, "we need a new approach. These things are too dangerous to face directly." Jake was studying the cave maps they had made. "What if we don't face them directly? What if we make them come to us when they're too tired to fight?" Lisa looked up from her research. "What do you mean?" "Back on Earth, our ancestors used to hunt mammoths," Jake explained. "Huge, powerful animals that could easily kill a human. But humans had one advantage. They could run longer than anything else." Danny's eyes lit up. "Persistence hunting. Chase the prey until it collapses from exhaustion." "Exactly. We can't match a crystal drake's power or speed. But can we outlast it?" Amy checked their supplies. "We have food and water for a week. Oxygen recyclers are working fine. But how do we chase something that moves through solid rock?" Jake smiled. "We don't chase it, we make it chase us." The human team spent hours studying crystal drake behavior. Lisa discovered that the creatures were territorial and would attack anything that threatened their nesting areas. Amy found that they responded to specific sound frequencies. Danny learned that they had incredible short-term strength, but limited endurance. On the second day, they put their plan into action. Instead of hunting the drakes, they began systematically invading their territory. Jake used small controlled explosions to create noise in drake nesting areas. Not enough to cause real damage, but enough to force the creatures to investigate. When a drake arrived, the humans would retreat just fast enough to stay ahead of it. The process was exhausting and dangerous. Crystal drakes were faster than humans over short distances. Their sonic attacks could kill if they got too close. But the humans had planned their retreat routes carefully. Amy coordinated the timing, making sure they stayed just out of reach. Lisa monitored the drake's energy levels, watching for signs of fatigue. Danny created distractions that forced the creatures to waste energy on useless attacks. Hour after hour, they led the drakes through the twisting caves. Every time a creature tried to rest, the humans would create another disturbance in its territory. Every time it gave up the chase, they would return and force it to respond again. The other teams watched in confusion. The humans weren't trying to capture the drakes. They were just running away from them. It looked like cowardice. "This is not hunting," complained a Kithara warrior. They are simply fleeing from their prey. But Vex Talon was studying the human tactics more carefully. He noticed that the drakes were moving slower each time they chased the humans. The creature's powerful attacks were becoming weaker and less frequent. "They are not fleeing," he said quietly. "They are setting a trap." On the third day, 18 hours into the chase, the first crystal drake collapsed. The massive creature simply stopped moving, too exhausted to continue. The humans approached carefully and found it completely helpless. "It's unconscious," Lisa reported, completely worn out. They quickly secured the drake with simple rope and metal cables. The creature was too tired to phase through rock or generate sonic attacks. Within hours, they had captured 2 more drakes using the same method. The trial judges were stunned. No team had ever captured crystal drakes by wearing them down. Most hunters tried to overpower their prey or outsmart it with technology. The humans had done something completely different. "This is impossible," said the floating crystal judge. "Crystal drakes have unlimited endurance in their home environment." Jake was breathing hard, but smiling. "Nothing has unlimited endurance. Everything gets tired eventually." Amy checked their final score. "We captured 3 drakes in record time, with no injuries to our team." The other competitors gathered around the human capture area again. Some looked angry. Others seemed frightened. A few appeared thoughtful that an old Zephyrian hunter named Click9 approached them. His compound eyes reflected rainbow colors from the crystal walls. "Your method is disturbing," he said in broken standard. "You do not hunt like predators. You hunt like something else." Danny wiped sweat from his forehead. "How do we hunt?" "Like death itself," Click9 replied. "Slow, patient, inevitable." The words made several nearby aliens step back. Jake realized that their hunting style was frightening to species that valued quick, decisive victories. As they prepared to leave the crystal caves, Amy noticed something troubling. "Captain, we're being followed by more ships now. Some of them look like military vessels." Lisa was monitoring galactic news feeds. "There are reports about us on every major network. Some are calling us the Endurance Hunters. Others are using less friendly names." Jake looked at the growing fleet of alien ships tracking them. Their success was attracting attention they might not want. "What's the next trial?" he asked. Amy consulted her datapad. "The void fields of Mortis. We hunt something called nightmare wraiths." Danny groaned. "That sounds even worse than crystal drakes." As their ship left Zerion Beta, Jake noticed that Vix Talon's vessel was following very close behind them. The Cathara champion was no longer treating this as a joke. In his private chambers, Vex Talon was studying every recording of human hunting methods. What he saw worried him more with each viewing. The humans weren't just succeeding through luck. They were using a form of predation that no other species in the galaxy had ever developed. They were patient enough to outlast any prey, coordinated enough to execute complex plans, and determined enough to never give up. These weren't the peaceful traders the galaxy knew about. These were something much more dangerous. The championship was only half over, but Vex Talon was beginning to realize that he might be facing the most sophisticated hunters in galactic history. The void fields of Mortis were a place where space itself was broken. Reality twisted and bent in ways that hurt to look at. Stars appeared and disappeared without warning. Time moved at different speeds in different areas. It was the most dangerous place in the known galaxy. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his ship and watched the twisted space around them. His crew was quiet, all of them nervous about what was coming next. "Your prey is the Nightmare Wraith," announced the trial judge, a being of pure energy that flickered as it spoke. "These creatures exist partially outside normal spacetime. They can manipulate matter with their minds and drive most beings insane. Many champions have died attempting this trial." Amy Walsh checked her mental shielding equipment. The protection gear barely works against these things. Most hunters who try this trial spend years preparing. Lisa Martinez was studying the scanner readings. The wraiths don't just exist in our dimension. They can attack from directions that don't exist in normal space. Danny Coleman looked pale. How do you fight something that can mess with your mind and attack from impossible angles? Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. We don't fight them alone. Before anyone could ask what he meant, 3 more human ships appeared from behind a space distortion. The vessels were identical to Jake's ship, and they moved in perfect coordination. Captain Morrison, came a voice over the radio. This is Captain Helen Price of the Denver. We've been tracking the championship from a distance. Another voice joined in. Captain Roy Turner of the Phoenix here. We couldn't let you have all the fun. A third ship commander spoke up. Captain Kate Williams of the Ranger. Thought you might need some backup for this one. Amy stared at Jake. You planned this? You brought a whole fleet? Not a fleet, Jake corrected. A pack. The other alien hunting teams were shocked. What they had thought was a single team of 4 humans was actually the advance scouts for a much larger group. 16 humans now faced the nightmare wraiths. Vex Talon's voice crackled over the communication channels. This is cheating. The rules state that each team can have only 4 members. The trial judge's energy form flickered as it considered this. The rules specify team size for individual species. However, they do not prohibit multiple teams from the same species. The humans have not broken any regulations. Jake smiled as he opened a channel to all 4 human ships. Listen up, everyone. We're about to show the galaxy what human pack hunting really looks like. The nightmare wraiths were unlike anything the humans had faced before. They appeared as shifting shadows that seemed to exist in too many dimensions at once. When they attacked, reality itself seemed to bend around them. The remaining alien teams tried their usual approaches and failed quickly. The Kithera's camouflage was useless against creatures that could see through multiple dimensions. The Fenrithi's enhanced senses were overwhelmed by the psychic noise. The Zephyrians couldn't fly in space where directions changed without warning. 2 teams withdrew immediately. 3 others suffered mental breakdowns and had to be evacuated. The nightmare wraiths were proving too dangerous for individual hunting methods. But the humans did something unprecedented. They began hunting as a coordinated group across multiple ships. Helen, take your team to grid reference 77 Alpha. Jake ordered. Roy, move to intercept position at grid 44 Beta. Kate, you're our reserve. Stay mobile and be ready to assist. Amy watched the tactical display in amazement. Captain, you're coordinating 4 separate teams across vast distances of twisted space. How is this possible? Simple communication protocols and shared instincts. Jake replied. Every human understands pack hunting at a basic level. We just need to trust each other. The humans began what they called a containment hunt. Instead of trying to capture individual wraiths, they surrounded entire groups of the creatures. Each ship handled a different aspect of the hunt. Captain Price's team used their ship's sensors to track wraith movements across multiple dimensions. Captain Turner's crew created psychic barriers that channeled the creatures into specific areas. Captain Williams' team provided mobile support, responding to threats as they developed. Jake's crew coordinated the overall strategy and adapted the plan as conditions changed. The nightmare wraiths had never faced anything like this. They were used to overwhelming individual minds, but the humans presented them with a distributed intelligence that adapted faster than they could attack. Danny, launch containment field generator 7, Jake ordered. Amy, coordinate with the Phoenix to create a pincer movement. Lisa, I need you to predict where the wraiths will retreat when we close the trap. The hunt took place across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The humans couldn't see all of what was happening, but they could trust their teammates to handle their assigned roles. When a wraith attacked one ship, the other three immediately moved to support. When the creatures tried to escape, they found humans waiting for them. When they attempted to overwhelm human minds with psychic attacks, they discovered that the humans' pack bond allowed them to share the mental burden. "This is impossible," transmitted one of the remaining Cathara hunters. "No species can coordinate like this across such distances." Vex Talon was studying the human tactics with growing alarm. "They are not coordinating like 4 separate teams. They are functioning as a single organism spread across multiple vessels." The hunt continued for hours. The humans slowly closed their net around the nightmare wraiths, using patience and coordination instead of superior technology or physical strength. One by one, the wraiths found themselves trapped in areas where reality was stable enough for containment fields to work. The humans had learned to use the environment against creatures that had mastered that same environment. When the final count was announced, the humans had captured more nightmare wraiths than all previous championship attempts combined. They had done it without losing a single team member. The galactic media was in chaos. News reports struggled to explain what they had witnessed. Some called it the greatest hunting achievement in galactic history. Others called it a terrifying display of human pack behavior. "The implications are staggering," reported one Zephyrian news anchor. "Humans have demonstrated coordination capabilities that exceed our understanding of what individual species can achieve." Vex Talon gathered the remaining alien hunters for an emergency meeting. His yellow eyes were cold with anger and fear. "We cannot allow humans to win this championship," he declared. "What we have witnessed is not normal hunting behavior. It is something far more dangerous." An old Fenrithi elder named Korth spoke up. "What are you saying, Vex Talon?" "I am saying that humans are not the peaceful traders we believe them to. They are pack predators of a sophistication we have never encountered. If they win this championship, every species in the galaxy will have to reconsider humanity's place in the cosmic order." The alien hunters looked at each other with worry. They had entered this championship expecting to compete against another individual species. Instead, they had discovered that humans could function as a collective intelligence while maintaining individual flexibility. As the human ships prepared to leave the void fields, Jate noticed that their escort of alien vessels had grown significantly. Some were clearly military ships. Others appeared to be scientific research vessels. "Captain," Amy said, "I'm getting reports that the Galactic Council is calling an emergency session to discuss the championship results." Lisa looked up from her communications panel. "There are also reports that several species are requesting detailed information about human capabilities and intentions." Jake realized that their hunting success was creating political consequences they hadn't anticipated. The galaxy was beginning to see humans as something other than harmless traders. "What's the final trial?" he asked. Amy checked her datapad. "Direct competition with Vex Talon's team. Winner takes all." Danny cracked his knuckles. "Sounds like the Cathara champion wants to settle this personally." Jake looked out at the stars and the growing fleet of alien ships watching them. The championship had become about more than just hunting. It was about humanity's future in the galaxy. The final trial would determine whether humans emerged as a respected species or a feared one. The final trial was announced with great ceremony. Representatives from every major galactic government had come to witness the conclusion of the championship. The space around Nexus Prime was filled with ships from across the galaxy. Vex Talon stood before the gathered crowd, his massive form impressive even among the diverse alien species present. His yellow eyes focused on Jake Morrison with unmistakable hatred. "The final trial will be different," the Cathara champion announced. "Instead of hunting beasts, The remaining teams will hunt each other. The last team standing wins the championship. Jake felt his crew tense beside him. Amy Walsh gripped her weapon tighter. Danny Coleman's jaw clenched. Lisa Martinez started calculating odds on her datapad. The trial will take place on Primal World, Vextalon continued. A planet with no intelligent life, but every possible. Terrain type. There will be no rules except survival. The hunt begins at dawn and ends when only one team remains. The crowd murmured with excitement and concern. This was unprecedented. The championship had never before required hunters to kill other hunters. But Jake noticed something in Vextalon's speech. The Kithara was not just announcing a competition. He was making a statement about human capabilities that went beyond the championship. Before we begin, Vextalon said, activating a holographic display, I want the galaxy to see what these humans really are. The display showed footage from human history. Wars, battles, and conflicts spanning thousands of years. Images of human weapons, tactics, and military strategies. The crowd watched in stunned silence as they saw humans fighting with a coordination and brutality that contradicted their peaceful reputation. These are not the harmless traders you think you know, Vextalon declared. These are sophisticated pack predators who have hidden their true nature for 50 years. They have used this championship to demonstrate capabilities that threaten the balance of galactic power. Several alien representatives shifted nervously. The footage was disturbing, showing humans engaged in conflicts that dwarfed most galactic wars in scope and intensity. This trial is not just about hunting, Vextalon concluded. It is about determining whether humans deserve a place among the galaxy's elite species, or whether they are too dangerous to be allowed to rise. Jake stepped forward. You're right about one thing, Vextalon. We have been hiding our true nature. But not because we're dangerous. Because we're different, he gestured to his crew. We're not apex predators like you. We're something else. We're persistence hunters. We're pack coordinators. We're problem solvers. And yes, we're warriors when we need to be. The crowd listened. Intense silence. The question isn't whether we're dangerous, Jake continued. The question is whether the galaxy is ready for a species that hunts differently than everyone else. Vextalon's eyes narrowed. We shall see. Primal World was a planet designed to test every possible survival skill. It had deserts, jungles, mountains, Arctic regions, and ocean areas. The terrain changed without warning, creating a constantly shifting environment. Each team was dropped in a different location with basic supplies. The objective was simple: be the last team standing. Jake's team found themselves in a temperate forest that bordered on a rocky desert. They quickly established a defensive position and began planning their strategy. We're outnumbered, Amy reported. 5 alien teams, 16 total opponents, all with superior physical abilities. But they're not working together, Jake pointed out. Each team is hunting individually. That's their weakness. Danny checked his weapons. What's our play, Captain? Jake smiled. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to make them fight each other while we stay out of the way. For the first day, the human team avoided direct confrontation. Instead, they observed the other teams and learned their patterns. Lisa used her scientific training to analyze alien behavior. Amy tracked movement patterns. Danny identified weaknesses in alien equipment and tactics. Meanwhile, the alien teams began eliminating each other. The Kithara used their camouflage to ambush opponents. The Fenrithi tracked enemies by scent. The Zephyrians used their flying ability to scout and attack from above. But Jake's team was doing something different. They were manipulating the competition without directly participating in it. The Kithara team is moving toward the Fenrithi position, Amy reported. They don't know about each other yet. Jake nodded. Danny, make some noise near the Fenrithi camp. Make it sound like Zephyrians. Then he used simple sound generators to create the clicking and buzzing sounds that Zephyrians made when hunting. The Fenrithi team, hearing what they thought were enemies nearby, moved to investigate. The result was predictable. The Fenrithi ran straight into the Kithara ambush. Both teams suffered casualties in the resulting battle. Psychological warfare, Lisa observed. We're making them fight each other by giving them false information. For 2 days, the humans used this strategy. They created false trails that led teams into each other's territory. They used sound and scent markers to confuse alien hunters. They even staged fake supply drops that drew multiple teams to the same location dot by the 3rd day. Only 2 teams remained, the humans and Vex Talon's Kithara squad, but Vex Talon had figured out what the humans were doing. He found Jake's team in a canyon and called out across the rocky space between them. Clever little humans. You used our competitive instincts against us, but now there is nowhere to hide. Jake stepped into the open, his hands empty of weapons. You're right. No more tricks, no more manipulation. Just us and you. Vex Talon's team moved to surround the humans. The Kithara were larger, stronger, and better armed. In a direct fight, there was no contest. You should have stayed hidden, Vex Talon said. Now you will face the consequences of challenging your betters. But Jake was smiling. You still don't understand what humans are, do you? Before Vex Talon could respond, Amy spoke into her communicator. All teams, execute Plan Omega. Suddenly, the other 3 human ships that had been eliminated earlier reappeared at the edge of the canyon. They hadn't been eliminated at all. They had been coordinating with Jake's team from orbit, feeding information and waiting for the right moment. Impossible, Vex Talon hissed. The rules state that eliminated teams cannot return. Check the rules again, Jake said calmly. Teams are eliminated when all members are confirmed dead or captured. We were never eliminated. We were regrouping. The truth was even more shocking. The humans had been coordinating their entire strategy across all 4 teams from the beginning. What appeared to be individual team eliminations had actually been planned withdrawals to orbital positions. This is what human pack hunting really looks like, Jake explained. We don't just work together as individuals. We work together as multiple groups with a shared goal. You've been fighting one team. We've been coordinating 16 hunters across 4 units. Vex Talon realized he had been outmaneuvered completely. The humans hadn't won through superior strength or technology. They had won by thinking on a level that no other species had ever achieved. You have proven your point, Vex Talon said finally. Humans are indeed different from other species. Perhaps too different. Jake nodded. That's the real question, isn't it? Not whether we can hunt, but whether the galaxy can accept hunters who think differently than everyone else. The trial judges declared the humans the winners of the Galactic Elite Hunting Championship. But as they stood on the victory platform, Jake realized that winning was only the beginning. Representatives from dozens of galactic governments were requesting meetings. Some wanted to form alliances with humanity. Others wanted to discuss potential threats. A few were demanding restrictions on human expansion into galactic society. What happens now? Amy asked as they watched the alien delegations gathering. Jake looked out at the stars, knowing that human ships were exploring new regions of space every day. Now we find out if the galaxy is big enough for a species that hunts like we do. The championship was over, but Jake Morrison had a feeling that humanity's greatest hunts were just beginning. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. Whether that was good or bad remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. Humans had proven they belonged among the galaxy's elite. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what that really meant. 3 months after the championship, Jake Morrison sat in a conference room on Nexus, Prime that was bigger than most buildings on Earth. Representatives from 47 different species filled the space, all of them talking at once about what to do with humanity. Amy Walsh stood beside him, wearing the formal uniform of a newly appointed galactic diplomatic officer. The championship victory had changed everything for the human crew. They were no longer simple explorers. They had become the face of humanity's new relationship with the galaxy. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that concern us, announced Ambassador Zeth Kar of the Cathara Imperium. He was smaller than Vex Talon, but his voice carried the same cold authority. Their coordination abilities exceed anything we have previously encountered. An insectoid Zephyrian delegate clicked her mandibles in agreement. The pack-hunting behavior suggests a level of species-wide coordination that could be used for purposes beyond hunting. Jake listened to the debate with growing frustration. For 3 hours, the aliens had been discussing humanity as if humans were not present in the room. They talked about restrictions, monitoring, and limitations on human expansion. If I may interrupt, Jake said, standing up. The room fell silent. You're all talking about us like we're some kind of threat that needs to be contained. The Fenrithi ambassador, an elderly wolf-like being named Korth, leaned forward. Are you not a threat, Captain Morrison? Your species has demonstrated military coordination that surpasses our most advanced civilizations. We demonstrated hunting coordination, Jake corrected. There's a difference, is there? Asked a purple-skinned delegate from the Nexa Republic. Your historical records show that humans have been engaged in warfare for most of your species' existence. Amy stepped forward. So have most of your species. The difference is that we learned to coordinate our efforts toward common goals instead of just fighting each other. Lisa Martinez, now serving as humanity's chief xenobiologist, activated a holographic display. The galaxy has hundreds of predator species. Most of them hunt individually or in small groups. Humans evolved differently. The display showed comparative data on hunting behaviors across different species. We're persistence hunters who developed pack coordination out of necessity. We're not apex predators. We're endurance predators. Danny Coleman, promoted to security chief for the human diplomatic mission, spoke up. On Earth, we learned that working together was better than fighting each other. That's why we formed countries, then planet-wide governments, then space exploration programs. But that same coordination could be used for conquest, pointed out the Cathara ambassador. Jake shook his head. You're missing the point. We don't want to conquer anyone. We want to explore, learn, and trade. The championship proved we can contribute to galactic society in ways nobody expected. An ancient crystalline being that served as the mediator chimed softly. The question before this council is not what humans want, but what they are capable of. The championship demonstrated abilities that could fundamentally alter galactic power structures. Amy accessed her datapad. In the 3 months since the championship, human trade has increased by 400%. We've established peaceful relations with 17 new species. We've shared technological innovations with 12 worlds. How exactly does that threaten galactic stability? Because you're spreading too fast, said a delegate from the Outer Rim territories. Human ships are exploring regions that have been unclaimed for millennia. Your people are establishing trading posts in neutral zones. You're expanding like no species has ever expanded before. Jake realized the real problem. You're not afraid of how we hunt. You're afraid of how fast we adapt. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Korth, the Fenrithi elder, spoke slowly. In 50 years, humans went from first contact to winning the most prestigious competition in the galaxy. Yes, Captain Norrison, we are afraid of how fast you adapt. Lisa brought up another display. Human exploration follows the same pattern as human hunting. We don't try to dominate territory. We map it, understand it, and then figure out how to work with it. And if someone tries to stop you, ask the Zephyrian delegate. Danny answered honestly. Then we adapt our strategy until we find a way around the obstacle. The crystalline mediator chimed again. This brings us to the specific proposals before the council. 3 options appeared on the main display. The first was complete integration of humanity into galactic society with full rights and privileges. The second was limited integration with restrictions on human expansion and monitoring of human activities. The third was isolation, effectively cutting humanity off from the wider galaxy. The Kithara Imperium supports the second option, announced Ambassador Seth Carr. Humans have proven their value, but their rapid expansion must be controlled. Several other delegates voiced agreement. The Zephyrians, the Nexa Republic, and the Outer Rim territories all favored restrictions on humanity. But then an unexpected voice spoke up. Vextalon himself entered the conference room, his massive form causing several delegates to step back. I was the one who challenged the humans, he said, his deep voice carrying easily across the large space. I was the one who lost to them. And I am the one who has studied them most carefully since the championship. Jake was surprised to see the former champion. Vextalon had disappeared after the final trial, and most assumed he had retreated in shame. The humans did not defeat me through superior strength or advanced technology, Vextalon continued. They defeated me by thinking in ways I had never encountered. They showed me that there are forms of intelligence I had never imagined. The Kithara ambassador looked uncomfortable. Vextalon, you are no longer the official representative of our government. But I am still the one with the most experience fighting humans, Vextalon replied. And I say that restricting them would be a mistake. The room erupted in surprised chatter. Several delegates began arguing at once. Vextalon waited for quiet, then continued. Humans are not like other species. They do not seek to dominate or destroy. They seek to understand and adapt. The galaxy needs this perspective. Jake found himself agreeing with his former opponent. We're not asking for special treatment. We just want the same opportunities as any other species. Amy nodded. Human expansion isn't about conquest. It's about exploration and discovery. We want to learn from other species, not rule them. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates remained convinced that humanity was too dangerous to allow unrestricted access to galactic society. Others argued that human capabilities could benefit everyone. Finally, the crystalline mediator called for a vote. The results were close, but decisive. The Council has decided to grant humanity full integration into galactic society, the mediator announced. However, this decision will be reviewed annually for the next 10 years. Jake felt relief wash over him. Humanity would have its chance to prove itself as a full member of galactic civilization. But as the delegates filed out of the conference room, Vextalon approached the human group. You have won more than a championship, he said quietly. You have earned a place among the galaxy's recognized powers. Use that position wisely. Amy looked at the former champion with curiosity. What will you do now? Vextalon's yellow eyes seemed almost amused. I am going to learn human hunting methods. If you cannot defeat them, perhaps you should join them. As they left the conference room, Jake realized that the real adventure was just beginning. Humanity had proven it could compete with the galaxy's elite. Now they had to prove they could cooperate with them. The stars ahead seemed brighter with possibility. 1 year after the Galactic Council vote, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the newest ship in the human fleet. The Endurance was 3 times larger than his original vessel and carried a crew of 60 humans from 12 different Earth nations. But more importantly, it also carried representatives from 6 alien species. Amy Walsh, now promoted to Admiral, reviewed the mission briefings on her command screen. The distress signal came from the Kepler void, about 40 light-years from. Here, a research station studying dimensional rifts has gone dark. The crew around them was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Humans worked alongside Fenrithi engineers, Zephyrian navigators, and even a Cathara tactical officer. The integration hadn't been easy, but it was working. What kind of research were they doing? Asked Zix Talon, Vex Talon's younger cousin had joined the human fleet 6 months earlier. The young Cathara had painted his scales in human military colors as a sign of respect. Lisa Martinez, now the fleet's chief science officer, pulled up the research data. They were studying something called void hunters, creatures that supposedly live in the spaces between dimensions. Danny Coleman, commanding the ship's security forces, looked skeptical. Supposedly? You mean they might not be real? The research team thought they were myths, Lisa explained. But their last transmission mentioned detecting something massive, moving through dimensional barriers. Jake studied the data with growing concern. The research station had been staffed by scientists from multiple species, including some of the galaxy's best minds. If something had happened to them, it wasn't likely to be a simple equipment failure. How long since their last transmission? He asked. Amy checked her chronometer. 72 hours. The automated distress beacon activated yesterday. Jake looked around at his mixed crew. A year ago, he had commanded 4 humans on a simple diplomatic mission. Now he was leading a rescue operation with the most diverse crew in galactic history. All right, people. And non-people, he added with a smile at his alien crew members. We're going in. Amy, take us to the Kepler void. Lisa, I want everything you can find about these void hunters. Danny, prep the security teams for unknown threats. The journey to the research station took 18 hours. During that time, the mixed crew worked together with an efficiency that impressed even Jake. The aliens had learned human coordination methods, while the humans had adapted to alien capabilities. Crixinine, a Zephyrian pilot, used her compound eyes to spot dimensional anomalies that human sensors missed. Torgak, a Fanathi engineer, applied his enhanced hearing to detect mechanical problems before they became serious. The humans provided the coordination and strategic thinking that tied everything together. Captain, called Lieutenant Sarah Park from the sensor station, we're approaching the research station now. I'm not detecting any life signs. Through the view screen, they could see the research station floating dead in space. It was a massive structure designed to study the strange physics of the Kepler void, but now it showed no lights and no signs of activity. Scans show hull breaches on levels 7 through 12, reported Zix Talon. Whatever hit them, it was big. Jake studied the damage patterns. Those aren't weapon impacts. Something physically tore through the hull. Amy frowned at her tactical display. The breaches are too large for any known creature. Unless the void hunters are real and bigger than anyone imagined, Lisa finished. Jake made his decision. We're going aboard. Amy, assemble a rescue team. Mixed species. Full coordination protocols. We find out what happened here and look for survivors. The boarding party consisted of 8 humans, 2 Cathara, 1 Fenrithi, and 1 Zephyrian. They approached the research station in a specially modified shuttle that could handle dimensional instabilities. Inside the station, they found scenes of destruction that defied explanation. Entire sections had been twisted into impossible shapes. Some corridors seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Equipment was scattered across rooms in patterns that hurt to look at. The dimensional barriers here are extremely weak, reported Dr. Martinez, scanning with equipment designed by both human and alien scientists. Something has been moving back and forth between our reality and whatever exists beyond it. Danny led the security team through the twisted corridors, his mixed squad moving with precision that would have been impossible before human training methods. No bodies so far, but lots of signs of struggle. They found the main laboratory deep. In the station's core, the room was larger than it should have been, stretching away into dimensions that didn't exist in normal space. In the center, they discovered the research team's final recordings. The holographic playback showed scientists from multiple species, working frantically as reality began to break down around them. On the recording, massive shadows moved through. The walls and equipment began responding to commands that no one had given. A-73, said the lead researcher, the elderly Zephyrian whose compound eyes reflected fear. The dimensional barriers are collapsing. The Void Hunters are not myths. They are guardians of the spaces between realities, and we have disturbed something we should not have touched. The recording flickered as reality warped around the camera. They are not hostile, but they are protecting something. Something that exists in the void between dimensions. We have opened a door that should have remained closed. Suddenly, the recording was interrupted by a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The research team looked around in panic as the walls began to twist and reality itself seemed to bend. They're taking us somewhere safe, the lead researcher said in his final words. The Void Hunters are not our enemies. They are trying to protect us from something else, something that should never enter our reality. The recording ended with the entire research team simply vanishing, leaving behind empty corridors and twisted metal. Jake's team stood in the warped laboratory, trying to process what they had seen. They weren't killed, Amy realized. They were rescued. Lisa was studying the dimensional readings. The Void Hunters moved them to a safe location between dimensions. But the question is, safe from what? Before anyone could answer, the ship's sensors detected something massive approaching through dimensional space. It was bigger than the research station, bigger than their ship, bigger than anything they had ever encountered. Captain, came Zixtalen's voice over the communicator, you need to get back here now. We have a contact that doesn't match anything in our databases. As they rushed back to their shuttle, Jake realized that humanity's integration into Galactic society was about to face its greatest test. They had proven they could hunt alongside other species. Now they would discover if they could survive alongside them. The entity approaching through dimensional space was not a Void Hunter. It was something else entirely. Something that the Void Hunters had been trying to keep away from normal reality. And now it had found a way through Dot as their shuttle raced back to the Endurance. Jake looked at his mixed crew of humans and aliens working together in perfect coordination. Whatever was coming, they would face it as they had learned to face everything else. Together. That the greatest hunt in galactic history was about to begin.